those of you who don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what we'll be doing. My name's Jonathan Robinson, and let's see, what am I? That's what we're going to find out here, is what we are. But I've been an author of a dozen books and a spiritual seeker for too many years, maybe 40.
You should have found.
Yeah, and a finder for about 1 year. So that's a new experience, and I want to tell you about that. And, you know, I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm more of an explorer. And I have a couple of outstanding traits. One of them is pretty lazy. So that has helped me to look for really easy methods. So if we have any of those people who can do Vipassana for 5 hours a day, this probably is not going to work for you, because most of my methods take 3 minutes or less. And that niche was very important because a lot of people fall into that camp and they want something that takes not very long. And what I have found is that it really doesn't help to do long, hard methods. Our true nature is actually very, very simple. So if you're doing long methods, I find that it doesn't actually help. And for some people, it actually hurts. But we'll go into a little bit of that later. I wrote some notes just in case I forget something. So what we'll be doing is I'm going to talk just so we're all on the same page for maybe half an hour, or maybe a little bit less, give you everything you need to know in terms of the theory and how I look at things, et cetera, et cetera. But then we're going to get into the important stuff, which is we're going to try different methods. And at last count, I actually keep record on my computer. I know of 162 methods that can be done in under 3 minutes. We won't get to quite all of them tonight, but I do have maybe 20 favorites. And I want to tell you how I came upon these methods. One way was I have a friend who interviewed 1,200 enlightened people over the course of 15 years, people who said they were enlightened. And he gave them a battery of psychological tests and physiological tests and saw that 1,187 of them were really different. 13 of them might have been just self-deceiving themselves, but almost all of them were sincere. And he asked them, what is your favorite method, or the method that really got you to this place? And he found that there were 20 methods that were very much that they said. And let me tell you the method that none of them said. Actually, less than 1% said. Vipassana. How many people here do Vipassana? Seems to not work whatsoever in terms of enlightenment, according to what he found. And he's a Harvard psychologist. He has some credibility. Yoga, completely worthless, according to his research. Pranayama, absolutely detrimental, according to his research. Now, we're in an age of science, so you can actually, not that this is conclusive, but he has done more research than anybody else. And if you're trying to become free, find out what somebody who actually knows the science might tell you. Now, he did find that a lot of these teachers who used a certain method that got them free, they don't teach that method, because they belong to a tradition that said that you're supposed to teach Vipassana or you're supposed to do something else. So they don't actually teach that method. Now, so me, who's a method junkie, who literally loves any new method, had not heard of 15 of these 20 methods, which I thought was incredible because I thought I'd heard of everything. You know, I write books about methods, and I've interviewed lots of spiritual leaders, and I literally had not heard of 15 of these methods at all. So that was interesting to me, and I took a course that took several months where I tried out each of these methods. And I found that some worked for me, some worked really, really well, and some didn't work at all. And that's the way it is. You know, some people like pizza, some people don't. But we don't necessarily apply that to spiritual methods. It used to be that people got exposed to one method in their whole life. You know, you pray, that's all you do. Or you do Vipassana, that's all you do. But the situation isn't that much better now, actually, because most people usually only try like 2 or 3 methods over the course of their life. And the chance of you finding the perfect method for you if you try 2 or 3 methods is actually very, very small. So I'm going to talk about different methods. We're going to try them out, tell you the ones that work best for me. And then your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to try them out for yourself and see what works. So that's the basic idea. You know, the other question is why do this? Well, I think if you look at the state of the world right now, everybody wants to do something to help, you know? And in one of my books called The Experience of God, I interviewed everybody from the late Mother Teresa to Dalai Lama and most of the spiritual leaders in the world at that time, which was 1995. I asked them all the same questions, and one of the questions was, what are we here to do as human beings? Now, I asked them all 10 questions. And with the other 9 questions, you got answers, all kinds of answers, like what's the best technique to use? They got all kinds of answers. When I asked them, what are we here to do, whether it was the Dalai Lama or Kenny Loggins or Deepak Chopra, they all basically said the exact same thing. Now, you can't get 40 people to agree that the sky is blue. So when you can get 40 people, 40 spiritual leaders of all different religions to agree on the exact purpose of human life, that's astounding as far as I was concerned. So do you want to know what that is? Mm-hmm. Well, for an extra donation, we can... No, I'll tell you. They basically said it involves 2 steps. First step is learn how to be filled with love, peace, and awareness. Second step is when you're in that great a shape and you're filled with love, peace, and awareness, go out and help people. Now, this isn't flabbergasting. You think, well, yeah, that's makes sense. Now, how many people are putting the majority of their waking life and time into either of those things? And a lot of them said that it really is not a good idea to try and go and help people when you are unhappy or neurotic. So try and do it in the order. You know, if you say the dog bit the man and the man bit the dog, all the words are the same, but the order is different. Changes the meaning. So what we need to do is first find peace. And in my opinion, find it as efficiently as possible. Now, we live in a culture or a culture that has told us that peace is where it isn't. So if you tend to believe other people or TV or media, you're at a great disadvantage because the culture says you'll find peace in having money or having good looks or in being young or being beautiful or finding the perfect partner, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So most people waste their lifetime exploring all those different techniques. And I love those techniques. I like money, I like, people, everything. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but they are not great techniques for finding peace or bliss or anything that might be higher. So then it becomes, how much time do you spend exploring the different methods that might help you to live an enlightened life? And once again, how many methods? Because there's hundreds now. Now, it used to be that there were only 5 or 6, but now the technology of methods has gotten significantly better. If you go back 100 years and you say in Nevada City, yeah, I'm headed to New York. And they say, really? Well, how many months do you think that's going to take you? Now, when you say, I'm in Nevada City, I'm headed to New York, they say, oh yeah, you got a nonstop flight, it's going to take 5 hours. So the technology of getting to New York has gone, 500 times better? I believe the technology of awakening has gotten 500 times better in approximately the last 30 years. Unfortunately, most people do not know these methods, so they're still doing these shitty methods that cause them hours and hours of time and makes them feel like they're knocking their head against the wall, which is sad. So now the guy who taught me this method, he charges several $1,000s for these methods. And I luckily have money, so I don't have to charge you anything. And the unfortunate part of that is it's very hard for Americans to value anything that they don't pay for. So I'm going to try and take as much money from you as possible, and all that money will go to hurricane relief, the Red Cross, and you can make checks out to Red Cross if you want to donate. If you don't have any money, then that's fine as well. So I have a donation jar back there. But I don't think people should pay to learn how to be a better human being. I think that's your job, is to do that. So that's a little bit my philosophy for what it's worth. And really, my philosophy doesn't make that much difference. I could be, Osama bin Laden, but if I give you a method that leads to bliss and makes you feel great, then hopefully you'll use it. It doesn't matter what the source is. And tonight we'll go over 2 or 3 methods, and in the next couple weeks we'll go over 2 or 3 methods as well. And the great thing is that one of them might put you to sleep, and the next one might lead you from stressed out to blissed out in 3 minutes. It only takes one, and then you have a friend for life, because wherever you go, there you are, right? Now, I have about 5 methods I use on a regular basis now. I had a wonderful spiritual teacher for many years, taught a lot of methods. I found all of those methods completely inferior to everything I'm learning now. I spent 25 years with him. It wasn't a fling. And he had some good methods. Just like the methods now to, say, find out information on Google is 1,000 times better than it was 25 years ago. It's no fault of his. He was giving the best at that time, but everything is on a very exponential curve. And the reason probably is because we do not have a lot of time. We have our own mortality, but I don't know if you've looked at the state of the world. It looks like we may not have a lot of time. I'm sure people in 1939 were saying, hey, things will be okay. And then 1940, 41 hit, and everything changes. And we're at a pretty unstable time, pretty unstable politics, pretty unstable, crazy people are getting nuclear weapons. It's a good time to really focus on this because the shit might be hitting the fan. Please excuse my language, but that's just my belief as well. Okay, so let me define what awareness is. And then we'll go into some methods and a little bit more theory. I define awareness as, I'm interested in hearing what I have to say. I define awareness as what is beneath all the layers of ego, thoughts, beliefs, opinions, judgments, and interpretations. What is naturally there if you took all those things away. You cannot not be aware. If I said, try for a moment not to be aware, you couldn't do it. The question is, or the problem is that we have these layers, all the thoughts, judgments, opinions, beliefs, thoughts, that obscure pure awareness. Now, I think of pure awareness as like a bright, shining light that emanates intense peace and love. And if you can get near that sun, you will experience peace and love. In fact, that's one way to know if you're experiencing awareness. You will feel intense peace and or love. If you're not feeling intense peace or love, you are not near awareness. So the question is, how can we let go of all those layers and get to this natural place? And that's where you get into techniques. But it can be useful to have a little bit of theory So I will cover a tiny bit of theory. I'm not big into theory, but you might find some of this useful. You know, human beings are called human beings. They're not called human doings. So what is being? Being is awareness. You're not busy doing something. You're just being. But a lot of the time we spend in this circle I call the neurotic you. And notice that the neurotic you has all these various layers around it. But the neurotic you is characterized by tension, by negative feelings, and lots of thoughts. Now, I'm sure this audience never experiences that. So I'm telling you about other people, just so you have some empathy. Yeah. Enough about that. Then there's the regular you, this layer around that. And that layer could best be described as being characterized by being busy, by lots of doings, and by feeling okay. You're probably in your regular you right now. How does it feel? Not so bad. Yeah, it's okay. But it does not feel intensely peaceful or blissful necessarily. So let's talk about some of the other layers. Then there's peaceful you. And this happens, you know, you meditate or you watch a sunset or something. And this is characterized by being relaxed and available. You know, maybe you're with a friend, somebody you care about, you're in your heart. You're in that layer of yourself. And that feels good. And then there's this layer, I call it the altered you and or fearful you. Because you're starting to take these layers off. And what I've found is when people take these layers off, there's a little like, whoa, what's going on here? Now, I kind of like that. But some people don't like that. You don't have to raise your hand. But if you've ever taken drugs, whether it be marijuana or LSD or any of these things, you feel your sense of self becomes a little bit altered. And that your sense of who you are might be a little bit expanded, might be a little bit different. Sometimes that brings up fear for people. Or if you've ever meditated for a long time, you feel a little bit altered, and sometimes that can bring up fear because you're getting so present and letting go of all these other layers that it can bring up like even a fear of dying if it's extreme enough. But that's an important level to be in. And then there's this expanded you, layer above that, and that's characterized by bliss, love, and deep peace. Now notice that around the expanded you, I call that pure, quote, know you awareness. Enlightened people live a large part of their life here. There's no sense of a person behind that. Now, you may have experienced this for moments. Have you ever just lost yourself in a sunset? Or you have a moment where you're just looking, you're not thinking thoughts? Usually this will involve having little or no thoughts. Characteristics are things like, well, here, all you know is that you're merged with everything. You wouldn't even say that you feel blissful because there's not a you there to feel blissful. But the expanded you does have that sense. There is a little bit of sense of self. And you're near this awareness. You're getting that sun. And you feel the warmth of that sun. You feel bliss, love, and deep peace. So I like to hang out here. Every once in a while I get lucky and I jump into pure awareness. And that's nice as well. Although it's not... Actually, I kind of like this more, which is probably why I'm not enlightened. But because I like to feel really powerful feelings. And here, you really actually don't feel feelings. You're more merged with stuff. So that's the theory. You like the theory? Thank you very much. That's my entire... You will not get any more theory. If you have any questions about that theory, you can ask now or forever hold your peace. Yeah.
In the merger state of
Yeah.
pure awareness,
Mm-hmm.
since you're one with everything and one with other people, do you know their feelings?
Do you know their feelings when you're in the pure awareness state?
Because you're part with them, so can you tell other people's or beings' feelings?
Well, you know, in reality, the guy who studied all these enlightened people found that there's 5 or so different types of enlightenment. And in some of them, they are very empathetic because they're one. And in some of them, they are the exact opposite. So it's interesting. When you don't know much about anything or something, you think it's A or B. But when you know a lot about something, you know it's A through Z, and there's all these different levels. So as he studied it, he saw that there were actually 5 different groupings of what would happen when people went from the expanded self to not having a sense of self. Sometimes they were able to merge with other people and feel them, and sometimes they were completely unempathetic. So quote, enlightenment really isn't one thing. We use one thing because we don't know people who are in that. We can't say, oh yeah, he's type A, he's type B. But in reality, there are various states of consciousness beyond having a sense of self. Yeah?
Who is this guy? And did he write a book with all this in it?
Yeah, you could go to a website called non-symbolic, one word, nonsymbolic.org. And he has all kinds of research and videos and academic papers. His name is Jeffrey Martin. Very interesting guy. Okay, so that's our theory for the day. Now that's the 3 laws of raising your consciousness. You ready? If you have a pen, you might want to write this down. First law. Try a lot of stuff. Okay? Just try a lot of methods, because it might be that the 11th method you try is the one that transforms everything, and you've only tried 10. That would be a shame. So to facilitate learning, I'm going to all say it at once. Try a lot of methods, right? Try a lot of methods. Good. Okay. Law number 2. Find what works for you. Now, this seems obvious, but a lot of times people have come to me, I'm a psychotherapist, and say, yeah, I've done TM for 25 years. I don't like it, but I do it. Hasn't done anything for me, but I'm going to keep on doing it. So law number 2, repeat after me, find what works. Okay, for you, exactly. And law number 3, don't mindlessly repeat what others say. Thank you. Okay. The reason you don't want to do it is because maybe they don't know what works for you. So you have to find out what works for you. You're the explorer. And, beets, the vegetable, are supposedly good for you. They make me throw up. I don't know why they make me throw up, but I assume they're not good for me. So when my doctor said, oh, you should really have more beets, I said, no, they make me throw up. And he said, really? I've never heard of that. They're usually really healthy for people. I said, I can demonstrate if you want, but it won't be pretty. So find what works for you and don't necessarily believe what other people say, because it might not be applicable to you. Yeah.
So what works for me is determined by what feels good, or what's the...
Good question. What works for you is a combination, well, it can change over time. But I think the first requirement is that you are willing to do it. Because if you're not willing to do it, it's not going to work. So let's say Vipassana meditation, does something for you, but you hate it. So you don't do it. Well, it doesn't matter how useful it is if you never do it. So it has to be something you're willing to do. The second thing is, does it seem to lead to you having more peace, bliss, or connection to your higher power? Then you can ask the people around you, does this seem to be having a good effect on me? Because I've met people who had teachers or went to a therapist, and I said, Bob, I just want you to know that in the last 6 months that you've been with that teacher, you've become a total asshole. In case you're interested. because they don't know. They think, oh, this is the only way, and now I have to tell everybody this is the way to do it. So you might check it out with other people, but I think the ultimate test is to read people who you respect. It might be Ramana Maharshi, it might be Neem Karoli Baba, and get their descriptions of their experience. And there's hundreds of teachers. There's Ajahn Shanti, there's Muji, there's hundreds of teachers now. They all have YouTube channels. Listen to them and say, does it sound like I'm moving in the direction of this person I respect? There's no guarantees, but there are descriptions of what pure awareness is. And you will pretty much know whether you're moving in the direction of that. It's a very specific experience. It's not like even other meditation experiences. And I think moving towards pure awareness is the pill that has the most benefit on people's spirituality. When I read about the most advanced beings who are alive today, they all say pure awareness is the Holy Grail. Now, some of them will say love is the Holy Grail, but that love will take you to pure awareness, or pure awareness will take you to love. But ultimately, they say it's really your connection to pure awareness that is what they define as spirituality.
So then at some point, do you drop the method and you don't need it anymore because you have reached a certain state or whatever? Or do you always need that method to get to the point or to get to the state of pure awareness? Is that always the key to it?
Great question. Your relationship with methods change over time. If you're in your neurotic you, the method that you use might be different than if you're in this you. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you the method you use when you're in the expanded you. Okay? If you ever find yourself in that self, that layer, there is only one method. Do absolutely and totally and completely nothing in all directions. Okay? Because that is the only method that will really take you from here to here. Because any doing that you do is self-defeating. You're trying to go into an experience where there's no you. So if you're busy breathing or whatever you're doing, that will actually eliminate you from going there. So that from here, the only method that works is do as little as you possibly can. But here, there are other methods, and you might find there's a method that takes you from this layer to that layer. So does that answer your question? Okay, yeah.
Well,
shout it out so people can hear.
Once you get into this pure awareness thing from the expanded you, can you do anything in the world? For example, could you do psychotherapy? I mean, there are certain things you want to do in the world that sort of require a sense of self, at least temporarily.
Yeah.
And so you then try to, well, can someone in the pure awareness do much in the world other than sit there and be aware?
Very little, probably. Ramana Maharshi sat in one place for 30 years, didn't move, but evidently his vibration was such that a lot got done. I would say most people are really living from this place, the expanded you. Although I hear that certain teachers that spend a fair amount of time and done this for a while can do stuff from a total sense of no self. It's rare, but it can happen according to... I personally can't, but I hear that it is possible. Okay. So before we get too much into theory, let's go into... Well, let me do one more explanation. This sense of self that we have, realize, is artificial. You know, think of like a university, a college. There actually is no university. There are buildings. There's parking lots. There's campus. But there's no... University is a label we have for this entire thing. Right? Now, in the same way, we have different parts of our brain. We have the part of us that's kind of the limbic system, and this part of our brain, and the frontal cortex. And then we have legs, and we have arms, and we have all these things. And we call that me. But if you dissected a person, you would not find this thing called me. Me is a figment of our own imagination. In this moment, in this second, there is no me. There's just you listening to me. When I say you, there is an awareness listening to me. So we have this very strong sense of me, of our personality and ego, and then we have to protect this imagined reality, and then we have to defend it, and then we have to plan for it. But this is really like a movie is not really a movie. It consists of 10 million still photos. And we are like that. We are a moment of, I see him now, or there's an awareness now. And then we put an ego on top of that. That is what the Buddha said we are. And I tend to believe him. He was a smart guy from what I hear. Now, how many people here even know what I'm talking about or have had that experience? You can kind of see through this ego thing that's always been busy being you, quote you. Okay. Now, a lot of people through drugs or through meditation have had that experience a few times, but most people are not having that experience a few times a day. So a year ago, I would say, yeah, I've had that experience a few times, but now I have that experience a few times a day. And not a lot. I'd say I experienced my expanded you, hour and a half, 2 hours a day. I still experience neurotic you, I get the whole thing. But 2 hours a day of expanded you has a lot of effect. It has some powerful winds, forces there. And so the more you can invest in this, the better, and things start to naturally change. You don't have to change yourself. My wife said, my wife who has not liked meditating or doing spiritual practices at all, ended up taking this course that requires 2 hours a day and 4 months of spiritual practice. I said, really? It'd be like, I just couldn't believe it. And I asked why, and she said, you've changed a lot over the last 4 months. And whatever is going on, I want to try that. Now, it wasn't that I was trying to change. I was just trying to get into this expanded self. And we've been married, a lot of years. And she's very honest. She wasn't trying to say, congratulations. She was saying something changed. So I think change doesn't need to take a long time as long as you find some way of getting there. So let's, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to guide you on, say, a 10 or 15 minute meditation. They'll have a couple of methods in it. Then I'll ask you how it was. I'll tell you, then I'll share what the method is. The methods, although they might take 10 minutes in my guided meditation, when I do them now, they take about a minute. So with practice, you get better at them. And that's important because you don't want to always have to separate yourself from life to do these methods. I do these methods while driving. I'm doing one of the methods now. And it's great. So we'll try this 10-minute guided meditation, see how you do, discuss how it is, and then we'll teach you this other method, which is the main focus of tonight. But I think you'll really like this guided meditation. So make yourself comfortable. I'll try and put some pleasant background music on. And make yourself comfortable in your chair. You can even close your eyes if you want. I hope we can. We'll see. I have an assistant who might be able to do that. And you know how people get into their meditative pose to take a couple of deep breaths and do that? Feel free to do that if you want. I'm going to see if this works. There we go. There we go. Great. So make yourself comfortable. Take a deep breath. I want you to start at your feet and scan for any tension you might feel. If you remember the video game Pac-Man, they had these little things that gobbled up stuff. Imagine that you can gobble up any tension in your feet. If you find it there, go, aha, I found it. And then gobble up that tension or massage it. So you can get to from aha, I found it, to ah. And then gobble up any tension in your lower legs. Scan for it. It's hard to get to pure awareness if your body is tense. So it's good to first begin everything with letting go of physical tension. Find any tension in your lower legs, either gobble it up or massage it. And then in your pelvis area, scan around there. If you find any tension, you can take a deep breath, gobble up the tension, or massage it, and feel the And then in your chest and solar plexus area, just let it all go as best you can. Gobbling up, massaging it, whatever it takes to just let it go. And then in your arms, your shoulders. Good. And now in your face, notice any tension in your face. We often have tension even in our ears or in our jaw. And if you can, let your jaw relax. It's fine to have your jaw open. Sometimes there's real subtle tension there, and do your best to just imagine your jaws being massaged into total relaxation. And let go of all tension in your face. And in fact, as you let go of tension in your face, sometimes you can get to an extremely peaceful you. Just letting that go completely. And now see if you can find a felt sense of stillness somewhere in your body. It might be your chest or any place in your body. A felt sense of stillness or silence that was beneath all these layers, beneath all this tension. And notice what that felt sense of stillness or silence feels like. Allow yourself to relax into it as best you can. It's always there. And with your jaw relaxed and your body relaxed, you can just melt like a chocolate bar melting into this felt sense of silence and stillness. Good. Now I'd like you to imagine that you are going to feel into your identity of whatever your identity is for work. Like I'm a writer and a speaker. Or an identity that you used to be for work. Might be an accountant or a builder, whatever. And feel what it feels like to think, I am an accountant or whatever it is that you identify with or have in the past. Feel into that self, that experience of being like that person. Good. Now I want you to imagine that you see those words on a computer screen, like I am an accountant or I am a lawyer, written out, if you can. Now imagine you can delete any words that come after I am. So delete those words. Now you're just the I am. You're just the awareness. Awareness is just present in this moment, the watcher, the one that is aware. It has no future, it's just aware now. Now come up with another identity, like maybe your relationship status. I'm single, or I'm married, or I'm dating. And feel into that identity. That part of you that's busy doing that. Being that. Feel into it. Maybe it's busyness, maybe it's tension, maybe it's subtle way of feeling in your body. Now, imagine it being written out on that screen and then deleting whatever comes after I am. So you're back to I am awareness. Awareness is who you are underneath the layer of thoughts, ego, personality, identities. Imagine you have no future. You are just here right this moment, watching whatever sensations pass through your body, watching whatever thoughts pass through. You like it, you don't like it, doesn't matter. It's all the same to awareness. In fact, you're in a place where you have no preference now because you're just watching things pass through. Awareness has no preferences. It just is. As best you can, you relax into that silent watcher. Nothing you need to do because it's always in the background there. And let's do one more identity. How you feel. I'm tired, or I'm feeling peaceful, or I am whatever. Any feeling that, it could be impatient. Whatever identity you might want to tap into as a feeling. Feel into that identity. Then let that one go. You might imagine it being erased, and you're back with I am. And notice how it feels different. Imagine there's no future. You're just here, behind all the layers of judgments, behind all the thoughts, not trying to push or pull anything a certain way. Completely open to what is in this exact moment. And as you let go into that, you might even lose a sense of what you are. There's just isness happening moment after moment after moment. And it feels good to relax into that. In a few moments, I'll be bringing you to a place where you're, from this experience of peace and maybe awareness, where you very, very slowly open your eyes. I want you to take as much time as possible to do that. And soon you'll be looking from this empty place of awareness out into a three-dimensional world. The awareness has no time, but you'll be looking into a world of time and space where there's movement. Awareness has no movement, but you'll be looking into a world of form. Awareness has no form. So you're like looking through a picture window from one world into another world. As best you can, enjoy what it looks like to see as if for the first time. Good. Welcome back. That was about 11-minute guided meditation. Anybody want to share what that was like? Some of you look like you smoked a joint while we did that, so you look a little mellow. So you might notice it's even hard to talk, or it looks like it's hard to talk. But did anybody, how many people felt like they got to a place of deep peace or bliss or love? Raise your hand if you get. Okay, that's pretty good. Now, let me share a little bit about the methods I was doing. I did a couple of things. One was, first, relax your body. Because if you're tense, you're not probably going to be able to get anywhere near pure awareness. Second, relaxing your jaw and your face can really help. We hold a lot of our identity in our face. You know, and that's why when people are tense, you can just tell in their face. But if you can relax your face, and especially your jaw, I mean like, you know, to the point where you look like you're about to drool, then sometimes your whole identity can just melt. So that's a method you might want to play with. And then I had you go in and find a felt sense of stillness somewhere in your body. And some people, once they relax their body and their face, they can find this, wow, that's a really clear felt sense of stillness or silence in my body. And they can just get there. With practice, you can get there in 10 seconds. Then I used a method. So these are all different methods, and one might work for you or none might work for you. Then I used the method of having you feel into various identities that you feel, and then contrast it with trying to let that go. So I'm busy being Jonathan. You know, it takes a lot of work being Jonathan. It takes a lot of work being you. But with practice, I've gotten better at letting that go. So I'm just being. So instead of being Jonathan, I'm just being. And that's what the I am and deleting the part after I am can be. That you get better at just letting everything after I am go. It just, I can play Jonathan, but it feels like I am. And then there's this other overlay. It's really a matter of what you identify with. I was talking to Adyashanti, some of you know who he is. I asked him, so what's enlightenment like? He claims to be enlightened. He said, it's not like anything. I'm just here. I just got here. There is no me beyond right here. That's what it's like. You know, it's not like he levitates. He says, I don't even feel bliss. I feel totally peaceful. But at first I felt bliss, and even that disappeared. Now it's just like everything's perfect all the time. So it can be subtle at first. You know, you're just here. But you certainly won't feel anxious. So letting go of after the I am and getting to I am, a lot of teachers, you know, Ramana Maharshi, they say, who am I? And you're supposed to eventually get to a place where you feel like I am awareness. Your identity switches from who you think you are to awareness. And that's really what enlightenment is. Yeah?
Question for those of us who,
Shout it out.
for those of us who hold a lot of pain or tension in our bodies,
Yeah.
what do you suggest in terms of trying to relax? Because some of us might have trouble doing that. So
Yeah.
is it possible to just focus on relaxing part of the body, or feeling that it doesn't feel tense?
Well, you know, in terms of relaxing one's body, I think anything I say would be fit into the first two laws. Try a lot of stuff and see what works for you. Because everybody's body is different, and you really have to find what helps you to relax. Like, for example, I know that dancing works for you. Dancing doesn't work at all for me. So if you try a lot of stuff, you'll find what helps you to relax. Now, a lot of people find that tensing a certain muscle and then relaxing can help. Or relaxing a certain part of their body can help. But it's really unique to people. That's why it's really important to find folks that will give you a dozen methods, and your job is to find the one that works best for you. Okay. Any questions about anything we covered before I go into the main technique for tonight? Okay. So let me talk about this technique. It has a little bit of history. Anybody here do what's called Buddhist mental noting? Okay. It's a method invented by the Buddha, and basically there's a lot of ways of doing it, but the history is that it was done by, you would identify your moment-to-moment experience, if possible out loud. And there's different ways to identify it. You might identify it in terms of the emotions you're feeling, or you might even put it into categories like past, future, you know, thinking or whatever. So you're trying to enter into impartially observing your moment-to-moment experience. And it's an effective technique. I've done it. But about a year ago, somebody came up with the idea of, why not throw in a slight bias towards positive things? And a lot of people have found that when they do this new slight bias, that instead of mental noting being somewhat of a drag, they enter into deep peace and bliss states within about 2 minutes. So it's quite effective. You all got this sheet called Subtle Noting, and I'm going to read it or highlight certain parts of it. Think of it that we're all in awareness, and our thoughts and feelings are like clouds moving through that sky. So in mental noting, you would say irritation, thinking about the future, wondering what to eat tonight. You know, that would be one way of doing mental noting. Another way of doing mental noting would be to have very simple categories like thinking, feeling bad, feeling sensation, thinking, like that. So there's no right or wrong way. These are different ways people have done this. And what it does is it's kind of feeding the awareness. It's feeding that impartial awareness, hopefully. The problem is that people soon get into like noticing that they are doing a lot of thinking and feeling bad a lot. So a lot of times it actually can bring them down. So in this subtle noting, after about a minute of identifying things, you instead do a slight bias towards anything that feels kind of peaceful or good. So you're kind of looking for that a little bit. But you don't stop identifying the other things. Now I'm going to do a spontaneous mental noting in ping pong, and in fact we're going to pair up and do this together. It can help at first because you can often space out if you do it alone. So my friend Tara is good to do this. And in this case, we will, if you notice that there are certain words here that are bolded. So we'll do a categorization, and let me describe how this works. One of the things people experience is thoughts, and most thoughts are worry. So if you're worrying in that moment, you'll say worry. Another thing people do is they feel things, mostly bad things, you know, small, like irritation or boredom or whatever. So if you're feeling that, say feeling.
Feeling, not the...
You can just say feeling.
Okay.
But sometimes, if you're really in the moment, you're just like there, and you're just noticing the primary thing going on with you is seeing. You're not so much thinking so much, so feeling much. You're just like looking at the visual, right? So then you would say seeing. Or sometimes you realize that you're really focused on hearing in that moment. So you'd say hearing. And what happens is we will ping pong back and forth. You'll say worry, and I'll say feeling. And then you'll say like that. Now you have a little cheat sheet. Now the other way of doing it is you can be more specific. You could say exactly what you're feeling, or you could say exactly the positive thing you're feeling. Either method is fine. Okay? Now this will be incredibly boring to watch. It's like watching paint dry when you observe it. But the experience of it is we are going from thinking and being lost in the future and all the things that we do to entering what I call the now stream. And in the now stream, things are always changing. People are rarely in the now stream. In fact, sometimes people will say, oh, I spent the last 3 months feeling depressed. Well, if you were in the now stream, you could only be depressed for about 5 seconds. So this is a great way to go from stressed out into the now stream. And if you spend really a minute in the now stream, you'll feel peace. And if you spend 2 minutes in the now stream, you'll tend to feel bliss. So the question is, how do you get into the now stream? And this is a way. Now, the first time you use a method is the time that you're probably the worst at it. I teach meditation at the prison here. I have about 50 people. And of the 50 people who had never meditated and did this, 70% of them said that they felt deep peace within 4 minutes. That's pretty powerful. You could take somebody who has murdered somebody and never done a meditation, and in 4 minutes they say, I felt more peace than I've ever felt in my entire life. That's the advantage of a good method. Now, this may not work for you, but I would say it's worth giving it a try, because a lot of people find that they can get into the now stream, and it's not that you go into bliss, 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 bliss. It's bliss, thinking, bliss, feeling bad, bliss, seeing. It's always changing. But over time, you tend to go from our world of worry and feeling bad into more and more present, more and more good feelings. Okay? So Tara's never done this, but do you understand the idea?
Impatient.
Good. Now, do you want to do specifically what you're experiencing, or do you want to do it in the category? Either one's fine.
Whatever comes up.
Okay, so whatever comes up. And if you don't know what's up when it's your turn, you can say, don't know. Okay? I am going to do the categories, but you feel free to do the other. Okay? And usually we do it in like a rhythm, so it's about every 5 seconds. And what you're doing is you're checking your experience and labeling that in 1 or 2 words. Okay? So, feeling.
Feeling.
Say it louder.
Feeling.
Okay. Thinking.
Sensation.
Thinking.
Hearing.
Seeing.
Hearing.
Feeling.
Sensation.
Peace.
Thinking.
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 Bliss.
Peace.
Thinking.
Sensation.
Peace.
Impatience.
Thinking. Now, I told you it'd be like watching paint dry, right? But it wasn't for us. You have to be like really there. So you can do it either way, be very specific, or use these general categories. Are there any questions on the basic technique?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say extend a bias towards the positive.
Say that again?
You said to try to extend a bias towards the positive.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah.
But what does that actually, I mean, does that mean if you're feeling something positive, try to stick with it? Or does it mean if you feel something negative, try to discard it? Or, you know, what does that actually...
Great question. You're not discarding negative feelings, and you're not trying to stick with positive feelings. After about a minute, what you're doing is you're kind of saying, is there anything in the background good that's going on? So, you know, it's like I would say peace, and then I'd go back into worry or thing. You know, and it goes like that. But I did, over time, I'm kind of saying, is there anything peaceful going on? And then I said, wow, that was a moment of bliss right there. So I'm not making it up. I'm just kind of, you know, like...
So you're allowing your consciousness to fall on it and noting it.
Yeah, yeah. And in the world of consciousness, what you focus on tends to grow. But there is practice to this technique, and you do find the right balance over a little bit.
So
Great question.
When we said feeling, and that's kind of neutral, so because when I said sensation, I meant a good sensation.
Uh-huh.
So, but I don't have a word for it. I mean, I couldn't describe it. But I was sensing something, and it felt nice. So.
Right. Well, you know, normally people have to find the way that works best for them. There's a categorization way that involves like 4 words, which isn't how I normally do it. Normally it would sound like this. It would sound like embarrassment, not sure, thinking, seeing, peace, boredom. You know, it'd be like that. So you have to try it out a couple times. I want you to have some experience with it. But I find that usually in about 15 minutes, people get all these answers from experience. But they're good questions. And I'm going to have people pair up and do it. Yeah?
I just rested my mind a little bit, and I find that I'm just repeating nouns. Like instead of hearing, I'm thinking sound. Not exactly a noun. But
yeah, that's fine. It's fine to do nouns. You know, in a way, it doesn't matter that you even get the exact right thing said. You know, you're just trying to do an approximate, okay, that's my experience that moment. What's my experience this moment? That gets you into the now stream. You know, if you're feeling impatient or frustration, you don't have to think, well, did I get the exact right word? It's not that important.
feeling a different kind of feeling. My thought of cool air.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, what's the advantage of pairing up and ping-ponging rather than just doing it yourself?
Good question.
If you're ping-ponging with another person, it seems like you're more likely to be responding to what they said, which might be okay, but...
Uh-huh. That can happen at first. The reason why sometimes people do the ping pong is it creates a very intense intention, and you don't space out. But we could try it on our own, and you could try it. We'll do it for, say, 4 minutes on our own without the ping pong. So, and now it's useful if you can to say it out loud. You're not saying thinking, you know, you don't have to do that. In fact, my wife is here. She hasn't heard this, but sometimes the reason I wasn't getting upset the way I used to is when she was trying to trigger me, I would go, irritated. I would say it under my breath. She went, no, like irritated, frustrated, wanting to kill her, you know, or no. I wouldn't do that. But, you know, I would say it really softly. And I was, instead of being overwhelmed by the emotion and doing my normal reaction, I was like, enough awareness was there. It was like I was just there. So, Yeah.
I do have a question. So are these things that you're saying out loud just one word? Like if I'm seeing this beautiful, colorful light, you know?
Good question. They're usually one or two words.
Okay.
So don't say multicolored
Okay.
thing there,
I would
which is
say
really beautiful.
Seeing and have that positive thought about seeing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is the seeing and hearing, that's considered positive?
Pure seeing is a very positive experience. It's a very peaceful experience. You're just in that moment seeing something. It's like when you see a piece of artwork before your judgment about it. It's like, if that categorization doesn't work for you, then then use the other things. This is kind of a cheat sheet. You can say, okay, what am I experiencing now? Self-judgment. What am I experiencing now? I'm experiencing my breathing. What am I experiencing now? Anxiety. What am I experiencing now? Oh, I feel expansive. You know, you can actually use this as a cheat sheet as you go along. And as I said, the first time you do it might be a little confusing, but generally people can get it pretty well within about 5 minutes. Okay? The prisoners did, and you're probably as good as that. So let's give it a shot. We'll do 4 minutes, and try not to pay attention to anyone else. You're just mumbling this to yourself. It can help if you want to use this as a cheat sheet. But basically, I will say very little, other than after about a minute, I might say something to guide you a tiny bit. Okay? The last one to bliss is a rotten egg. Okay, that was 4 minutes. Welcome back. And notice what your experience was. Now, most people say that those 4 minutes are more intense than if they were just doing another form of meditation. So this can be useful once you practice it in doing like 2-minute meditation breaks. 2 minutes into the now stream can take you out of, say, a thought stream of worrying or feeling bad that you've been feeling for a while. With practice, now I can pretty much get out of most bad feelings in about 30 seconds and into the now stream. And that's a really nice skill to have. So, anybody want to share what their experience was? Yeah.
I was wondering, it was like what I looked at influenced me.
Mm-hmm.
If I looked more at the happy words, the positive,
Yeah.
I found myself drawn into them more, and I could glance back at the more negative.
Yeah.
And they had some power, but I found myself choosing to, because I was learning the positive power of the other words. Mm-hmm. So just seeing them written there was like signs to me.
Uh-huh.
So why look there? So
Yeah.
when you're driving a race car, look where you want the car to go, not
Right.
at the wall.
Right, right.
So just the words themselves as like signs there to look at on the sheet.
Yeah, the sheet can be like training wheels. And you know, what you focus on does tend to grow, so it's good to have that, and to, you know, eventually you won't need the sheet. You just think, it becomes automatic for me after about 30 seconds. I almost ask, like, am I aware of any peace here? Is there something else going on? And it takes a while to find that balance between what is happening, especially if you're lost in something negative. But even if you're lost in something negative, you know, if you were feeling bad about something, you would start off probably saying depression, irritated, depression, irritated. You say that enough times, soon you're going to feel embarrassed. At least it will change to that. And then it'll be like amusement. And then it'll be like, damn, I feel peace, you know? So it can be very effective in that way. Yeah.
Is it because when you're doing this, you're winding up in the observer position? And this is weird to say, like, who are you? What's the you we're talking about? But let's call it a self. You wind up in the observer part of you?
Yeah,
Watching this stuff?
the observer part of you is very close to awareness. We can quibble whether it is awareness, but it's in the right direction. It's certainly away from the neurotic you. So it gets you closer to this source of energy that keeps us alive. Yeah,
Would you do this,
a little bit louder.
would you pause to do this, or would you do it while you're, doing something?
Well, it's first good to practice it alone so you get the sense of it under ideal circumstances. But currently I'll do it while driving. Lately I've had to do it while reading the New York Times. So I don't go down. So with practice, it is one of those things that you can do in life. And it can be very helpful. I mean, I don't know if you have any irritating people in your life or people that can be hard to deal with, but if you do, it can be really great because instead of being reactive to them, it's like a mini letting go every time you say something, because then you're on to the next thing. And sometimes I, am in an airport and you're starting to go the way of, these airports are terrible and TSA and things shouldn't be like this. And you're starting to go down that whole path and it just interrupts it. Yeah.
I started out, I was really glad we had done that guided meditation thing because it already put me in this kind of a nice space.
Yeah.
But as we started this, I kept getting kind of yanked out because I was hearing things that would take me away. And so I was getting irritated. But then I wasn't even going back to words, but I found that in a fairly short amount of time, even though I kept hearing words that were not in my place,
Yeah.
I unhooked.
That's a great idea. You're trying to unhook from your constant identification with the stupid amount of thoughts and feelings we have going through us, which you have no control of normally.
It was a surprise.
What?
It was a surprise.
Because
I really was like, everything I can stay in my own little place. And then it was just like,
No, there's many layers of thoughts and feelings that you can unhook from, even when you think that you're being peaceful. So, great. So those are some good things to report. If it was a method that works for you, then use it. If it was a method that doesn't work for you, then you'll get plenty more. Actually, if you want to, in case I need to contact you for anything, if you could put your email and name here, like if, for example, I was sick or something, or I want to send you something and you're wanting to do that. I won't use your email for any other purpose. Any other questions on anything we've talked about tonight? Yeah.
This is kind of a Vipassana question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, with preferences, do you have to be aware of spiritual bypassing by just, like grabbing towards something that you prefer?
Yeah.
Rather than just allowing and unhooking?
Right. That's a pretty sophisticated question. And just your awareness of that problem is going to help you to not stay in that problem.
Okay.
But think of it that at certain times, different methods are the right tools. If you're trying to fix your car, sometimes you need a wrench, sometimes you need a hammer. And you may find that this is a good entry tool, taking you from your neurotic you or your regular you all the way to something very peaceful or something very expanded. Then you might need a different tool because you're starting to abuse it. And we'll get into that in other weeks. over time, if you have like 10 good tools, you start to see that, oh, that one I can really easily abuse. Whereas this one seems to, I can't abuse it, you know? And in fact, I found that as I did these, I actually felt my feelings a lot more. I had been doing spiritual bypass, and this actually helped me to feel my feelings more, which was, I thought, a good sign for me.
Why is it abuse if it gets you closer towards those outer pure awareness or expansiveness?
Well,
why do you label that abuse?
I say it can be abuse. Let's say you don't like anger and you're afraid of it, like me. Hey, why not use that example? I always avoid anger, and I would start to use these to like just bypass all anger. Whereas me being angry is a fearful, and my wife would say a good thing because I avoided it. Yeah, it's real. Yeah. So those are subtleties, and they're good questions. That's a good answer for now. Great questions, by the way. Anything else?
When are you going to be on Oprah next?
Well, you know, Oprah doesn't have a show other than Super Soul Sunday anymore. She just did an interview with Michael Singer on the Untethered Soul, and if you haven't read that book, it's a great book where he talks about spirituality is basically trying to disidentify with the ego and the thoughts and get to this place of awareness. That's what the whole book is, and she did a wonderful interview with him, so now I don't have to.
He's already done it.
She did it for you?
Yeah. No, he said it all. But you know, a lot of us know this stuff intellectually, and you get exactly 0 points for intellectual understanding. No, I would say that's not quite true. You get negative points. Because now you have all the arrogance of having the understanding, but you have none of the actual beingness. So you actually create another level of separation. Everybody here knows somebody like that? A spiritual know-it-all that uses their spiritual knowledge to make themselves feel superior? I know this person because I live with him. Not all the time is he like that, luckily. You know, it's interesting. I spent some time recently at a workshop which had 3 so-called enlightened people at it. And I had heard of them, and they were at this workshop, so I spent a lot of time asking them questions. And one thing I found that was really interesting about all 3 of these people, they were wildly different in some ways, but all of them referred to themselves in the third person. So they would say, well, Sequoia, you know, sometimes thinks all kinds of crazy stuff. I say, why do you identify? Why do you use that? Is that a technique? And she said, no, it's not a technique. I'm not Sequoia. You know, I am this place of pure awareness, and this other being does all kinds of stuff. Some of it makes sense, some of it's crazy. I get to watch it all, and that was her experience of life. And I could tell that she was being on the level. So for some people, sometimes that can be a good method. And for some people, it makes them sound like they're completely full of shit, because they are. You know, if you're using it as a way of saying, well, I didn't do that, he did, you know. I kid with my wife when she leaves. She said, why is this house a mess? I said, the guy took over. Don't blame me. She doesn't buy it yet, so evidently I'm not quite there. Anyways, I'm going to share with you one more story and technique, and then we'll have some crackers and things like that, which you can enjoy. Feel free to invite friends. I have some flyers back there. The cost is the same. No, it's going to be twice as much next week, okay? Twice as much. But actually, if you can give some money to the Red Cross, that would be great.
So then we have had a second hurricane.
Yes. You want to give money to the people in Houston before Florida's destroyed. which could happen. So this is a funny story that happened to me, and it's also a nice technique. So I'm giving you a lot of techniques, and hopefully you're not overwhelmed. But when I interviewed a lot of spiritual leaders, I found that a lot of them said that one of the best ways to peace or God was through gratitude. So I became very interested in how do you feel grateful more? And it ends up a friend of mine had gone to India and had met a guru that gave him this magical mantra that helped him to feel overwhelming gratitude. So I asked him, would you be willing to tell me what that mantra is? And he said, no, you're going to have to go there yourself. I go, "Rrr, rrr." And he really wouldn't give me this mantra. So he said, go to the guru. That's where all the power is. And so I fly 18,000 miles to India. If you've ever flown to India, it's hard. And then took a rickshaw for 3 hours. Finally get to the ashram. There's a line of about 40 people waiting to talk to the guru. It took 4 hours to get through the line. I'm a little bit irritated by now, to get this mantra. But I get there and I say, Guruji, my friend said you have this magical mantra. Would you please tell me what it is? And he says, yes, I will do that for you. Whenever possible, repeat the following words. And he leans in, to whisper into my ears. And he says, by now I'm so excited that I literally am stopping breathing because I don't want to miss the pronunciation or anything. I just want to get this perfect. So he says, whenever possible, repeat the following words. The mantra I give you are the words, thank you. I look at him like, you're kidding, right? And he's not smiling. I say, that's it? I flew 18,000 miles to get thank you? Are you kidding me? That's it? And he says, that's it is the mantra you have been using, and that makes you feel like you never have enough. My mantra is thank you, not that's it. That's it will take you nowhere.
That's great.
I'm really pissed off. So I look at him and I say, well, thank you. And he looks at me and he says, thank you is not the mantra. You have to say it from your heart many times a day. So when you eat good food, say thank you. And when you see your child or a sunset or a pet, say thank you from your heart. And soon you'll be filled with gratitude. So I said, okay, thank you. And I left. And I figure I might as well do what he said. So, I get into the taxi, and there's air conditioning. It's about 103 degrees in India. And I sincerely say, thank you for the air conditioning. And I get to my hotel, and there's a clean bottle of water there, which is important. So I say, oh, thank you for this water. And then, I have my laptop there. At the time, I opened it up, and I was able to Skype my girlfriend at the time. And I think, wow, this is pretty incredible. And I'm talking to somebody on the other side of the planet for free. And I say, thank you. And I see her, and I say, thank you. And soon I have tears of gratitude going down my face because I realized that we're given all this stuff, but I was missing it. I wasn't present with it. So it really does work. You can use this as a non-stop mantra throughout the day. Do it with good stuff, I'm thanking you. It feels good to have you here. But, you go out and somebody cuts you off the road. That's the advanced thank you. I've been trying to learn compassion, and the best way to learn compassion is with jerks like that guy. So thank you for doing that, But we have so much to be grateful for, and if we're present with it, amazing things can happen.